Is he a Muppet? Is he a Yeti? Is he some kind of Bigfoot? Nobody has any idea.
First mascot ever based on the crayon drawings of a 5-year-old who saw his parents murdered.
Pure, unadulterated nightmare fuel.
Those kids should be scarred for life. Gritty is horrific.
That thing is horrifying. He looks like if Ed Sheeran exploded.
When he whips his head around and the eyes start googling, I feel like I'm going to have a seizure.
For the first time since 1976, the Flyers have a mascot.
So the Flyers reached out to me over email. The email was really short and brief. It just said something like, how would you like to help us design our new mascot on a real tight turnaround? When I talked to the art director, they told me that they were going to be launching a new mascot in just a few months, because this was in the summer when they contacted me, and it was the fall that they wanted to release Gritty. So the only direction they gave me really was that they wanted Gritty to be somebody that you wanted to high five but not hug. I started drawing a bunch of sketches of different animals, different monsters, a couple different people, and pitched that to the Flyers to see if there was anything that they liked. And they picked a sketch that was pretty close to what Gritty looks like now to move forward with. When Gritty was first released, the art directors told me to brace a little bit for negative reaction, because they were aware that since the Flyers haven't had a mascot for decades, there are a lot of people that maybe never wanted one. A lot of people who just didn't think they needed one. I shared that on my social media, and I started getting lots of comments from friends and family and clients and things congratulating me and saying how cool this is. But then I got one comment that said something like, from a stranger, that said, I don't think everybody's a fan. And I saw that and I was like, what does that mean?
As a journalist, it's been kind of interesting because we're not really given access to Gritty. A lot of the reporting I'm doing has actually been on the response to Gritty.
I find him funny and like weird looking.
I find him scary. I'm actually, you know, I'm horrified by this.
My initial reaction to Gritty was, this is ridiculous. Like, I remember I was on Twitter and I saw that they had posted the photo of him, and it's the one of him kind of spreading his arms against a black backdrop, and he looks legitimately terrifying. And obviously people started tearing it down immediately, and I kind of watched that play out on Twitter.
I immediately went to like the Flyers social media page, and I read the first comment and it was negative, and then I read the second comment and it was also negative, and they just kept they kept going. It kind of felt like the whole city of Philadelphia was breaking up with me over text message or something. It's funny, the progression was basically Gritty was released, Philly freaked out, and then the nation freaked out. And then Philly freaked out because the nation was freaking out. You know what I mean? Like, they came to Gritty's defense a little bit.
I follow a lot of my coworkers, they were retweeting things, people were making snarky comments, and then people were like, wait, actually, this is kind of funny, and we should support Gritty, and he trashes other people on social media, and Philly is nothing if not just a bunch of like trash hot takes.
Can an unpopular meme suddenly become popular? Absolutely. And it can happen in a political context, and has happened with the rise and fall of the political fortunes of a variety of candidates. For example, Richard Nixon lost the election to John Kennedy in 1960. Then he came back and won the election in 1968 and 1972. So Nixon had his fall and then his comeback.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
The narrative was amplified really quickly by social media. I think that was where it took off. I don't think there would have been as much widespread media coverage if it hadn't been a social media movement.
Tweets changed the reaction on the internet to one of hating to one of, whoa, this guy's pretty good.
With social media and internet communications and electronic media in general, you could say something and then it could be reinterpreted 5, 10 days later, 20 days later, 2 years later, or 5 seconds later. And so it's much easier to take an image, a statement, a tweet, a belief, an assertion out of context and twist it around and distort it.
Because of social media now, how easy it is for regular people to have their opinion picked up by the news. You really have to just make something totally off the wall and genuine.
What will make a symbol replicate and get passed along, as in the case of Gritty, is the fact that it has something unique about it that makes it stand out and easy to copy and to fit into a pre-existing worldview.
It became really clear really fast that Gritty kind of had a social media team behind him that really knew what they were doing. I remember one of the first tweets that they sent out was like a retweet of the mascot of the Penguins or something had tweeted trash talk at Gritty, just like, what is this stupid thing? And then Gritty was like, sleep with one eye open, bird. Like, something like that is it's so Philly that I think people really identified with it.
Calm down! They're just engaging in some inter-team banter and you've gone straight to, I will murder you in your sleep.
When we were designing Gritty, there were no focus group tricks or anything or strategies. We just really wanted to make something that was just you look at it and you smile. One of the unexpected things that happened was that other groups started embracing, other non-hockey groups started embracing Gritty as their own. That was totally unexpected, of course, and so he's been part of liberal movements.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
So what has happened is Philadelphia is a big hockey town, and we've got Gritty as the mascot of one of the biggest sports in Philadelphia. And so it's already got two things going. Philadelphia is a sports town, Philadelphia is a hockey town, and Philadelphia is a politically charged town. So Gritty cuts across all those, and what has happened is he's replicated beyond his original purpose, which was to fire up fans and entertain fans at the game, and he's been appropriated to have this political meaning, perhaps because of his design, perhaps because of the way he looks or his manners or whatever, and then it has been taken from its original context and reinserted into a political context.
I really actually do see Gritty as kind of like a genderqueer figure in a masculine sports culture. And because Gritty can be so amorphous, allows Gritty to be a constantly changing identity. The Antifa and queer community just embraced the idea of Gritty and turned it into its own in a way that kind of went side by side with the politicization of Gritty, but it's definitely in queer spaces, people love Gritty.
It wasn't really surprising to me when the left kind of claimed him as that he became Antifa resistance symbolism. What did surprise me was how widespread it became.
This is from The New Yorker at the beginning of October, some 2 weeks after Gritty was unveiled. And, you may laugh at this, how the left won the war for Gritty. There was actually a battle between the right and the left to take control of Gritty.
The left has kind of lacked something that people really banded behind, kind of like Pepe the Frog. That's the conservative meme. Pepe the Frog was not created to be a conservative image, but it kind of has become that over time. And I think the left kind of didn't have something like that. So they saw this ball of chaos or really memeable character kind of just roll into the world.
Gritty, as a political meme, illustrates one of Jean Baudrillard's key concepts, and that is that we now have a culture in which objects, beliefs, behaviors, or symbols can be liberated from the original purpose and become free to circulate and take on new meanings for different purposes than the original person intended. And that is one thing that is central to our political systems, the ability to take something and reappropriate it and spin it back. The expectations of our political figures and political parties have been completely absorbed within the electronic spectacle. So Gritty is just another example of the media system operating on the political system.
Gritty is just so anti-establishment, and there's a big anti-establishment movement going on really on both sides. And I think that's why all these other groups have embraced him, because he's just sort of a perfect symbol of like, we're not gonna follow these rules anymore.
To let the president know where he's at, some invoked the likeness of the Flyers' new mascot, Gritty, as they rolled out the unwelcome mat for President Trump.
There was a lot of negative news and negativity in general being circulated that kind of had to do with national politics and other social things that were going on, and I think we were in a really dark moment of the year news-wise, and so people who were upset by that kind of clung to Gritty as this kind of fun, at first fun, memeable, hilarious story, and then it kind of just became that, the chaos and the kind of attitude that he has, that he doesn't care about anybody else. He doesn't care about what people think of him. He doesn't pander to fans. He just kind of does whatever he wants.
And it's like, Gritty doesn't want to be nice. Like, Gritty doesn't want to fit into like Wall Street version of, you know, what a mascot is.
Gritty is anti-establishment because he's just so different in terms of a mascot. Everything about him is not safe.
Flyers mascot named Gritty, knocking people over here.
Like, everything he does is just sort of defying the rules. He kind of feels like as if he was hired to do a mascot's job, and he's terrible at it.
Yeah, they've dropped 5 in a row, and nobody, and I mean nobody, is happy about the way things are going. It was supposed to be a fun little bit, Gritty.
But I think what's amazing is the marketing team did such a phenomenal job embracing that reaction and actually making it part of Gritty's personality.
I think that the future of Gritty is up to the people. I think that Gritty is the people's voice, and where he goes next or where they go next depends on how we learn how to come together.
It'll be so interesting to see how far that symbolism goes with Gritty, if it continues. I don't know. It could continue until there's another thing that replaces him.
I guess I wonder if the Gritty mania will just kind of phase out. I don't know. I think it depends on our politics, right? So if in 2020 things have kind of changed and the left has the upper hand or whatever, there's probably less need for Gritty.
So the idea for those who've appropriated Gritty to continue to have been politically relevant, they'll have to adapt Gritty to the changing political landscape, which can change very quickly at the surface level. It doesn't really change at the deep level, but it changes at the surface level.
To me, he symbolizes now more than hockey. There are so many people that love Gritty, and people who have sent me like fan art of them making Gritty on a cake or making him or getting tattoos of Gritty. And many of these people aren't even Flyers fans. So it's really incredible to have something that kind of became like the nation's mascot. It's just a great feeling to like see something that was a sketch on my desk 2 months ago is now like this living, breathing thing with a personality and a Twitter account, you know? So it's pretty wild. It's not something I expect to happen again. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.